Hey, there we go. Hello, Manny. What's up, man?
What's going on, my brother?
We're finally doing it. We talked about doing a show for. We've been talking about doing a show for years. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, like years ago, we were talking about doing it. This is our first crack at it. The Post Constitution podcast. I'm Seth. You're Manny. We decided on this name. I wanted to talk a little bit about why we chose this name. The Post. It was last week we were talking. You were telling me that Uncle Sam's Misguided Children was banned from what was it, Facebook or something? And I mean, I'm not the
Facebook,
least. Yeah, I'm
Facebook,
not the.
and their actual page.
Yeah, that guy. The thing is, that guy's not even edgy or not really that edgy. I mean, he's just like a veteran that loves Trump and supports the Second Amendment. And it's like I'm not the least bit surprised when anybody gets banned at this point because this sort of thing is it started about 3 years ago. It really started ramping up with like the censorship and all that. And they started with people that were kind of hard to defend. You know, they started the first people that started getting banned was like it was like the Daily Stormer and stuff like that, and stuff that people would like in polite society. You don't want to make a defense of those guys. Then a year later, it was Alex Jones, and now it's like the Dude, if you look at Donald Trump's Twitter right now, there's like more warning labels on it than a carton of Marlboros. You know, it's like they have all. It's like the majority of his tweets are right now being censored, and I mean, if they can go for the president, who can't they go for? And so, I mean, I'm expecting eventually this show will, if we get to enough of a large enough audience or whatever, will get censored, and it's just something that we have to live with and work around, and that's why you got like alternative like Parler and all these alternative things and whatnot. And it's really like we technically have the Second Amendment, but it's they've found a workaround. They found a way to where it's really meaningless now because the libertarians and certain people they'll say, "Oh, you have the Second Amendment because it's not the government that's doing it." Right? As if that somehow that distinction somehow makes a difference, you know, because think about it. Like you can be banned from you can lose your job for saying the wrong thing nowadays. If you say something that the left considers to be racist, like if you disagree with Black Lives Matter, if you just say, "Well, I think Black Lives Matter is the looting and the rioting," I think it's less than optimal. I mean, something that fucking benign is now considered like a racist statement. If you say something that's considered, you know, if that label gets attached to you in any way, you can literally lose your job. And yeah, but then once again, it's like, well, you lost your job for your speech, but it wasn't the government that did it. That was a private company. They can do whatever they want. And then when it comes to Twitter, well, these are all private companies. So YouTube and Google, these is private companies, not the government. And then if you try to start a PayPal, like, hey, everyone, I lost my job for having an opinion. Can I have some money, please, so I can feed my family? PayPal, GoFundMe, they'll just shut you down instantly. But it's not the government, right? I mean, so imagine if you're one of these guys, you lost everything. You've lost everything to your name. You lost your job. You can't even tell people your story. And then someone comes along and is like, well, hey, man, it's all right. It wasn't the government that did it. It's like, oh, well, thank God, right? Like as if that makes it so much better. And what's interesting is that you know China, they have this social credit score where the government actually does censor you. Like if you say something the government, the communist government of China doesn't like, they can. I've seen the video where they've taken people and they've got them chained, like shackled in a chair, and they're sitting there interrogating them, like, why did you say this? You know, and forcing them to apologize. And the interesting thing about that is in China, if you say something the government doesn't like, if you lose your social credit, you can actually regain it. You can work and you can actually regain it. And so in a way, because in America, if you say something racist, you try to apologize for that. Try to apologize for some racially insensitive or something politically incorrect. There's some homophobic or whatever. Try to apologize for that. And just imagine they're like, oh, it's okay. We see. No, what they say is, no, it's too late. We know how you really feel. You know,
Like
that's how
Roseanne.
they go. And so it's like, in a way, the Chinese government censorship is less worse than what we have now. You know, because you lose your job and you can lose future job prospects and everything. And
Mhm.
then, so it's like we have the Second Amendment, but do we really? I mean, the First Amendment. Have I been saying second? I know the first and the second part. The First Amendment, but then the Second Amendment. When you talk about the Second Amendment, okay, we technically have the right to own guns, but you want to know what happens when you use it? Well, ask Kyle Rittenhouse. Ask Kyle Rittenhouse how that worked out for him. He's defended himself. It's all, the entire thing is on video. There shouldn't be a dispute about what happened because the whole thing was filmed. We can clearly see a guy going at him with a skateboard, another guy coming at him with a gun. Doesn't matter. That literally it's on video, and they're still charging the guy with manslaughter. So it's like, do we really have the Second Amendment? I mean, we're on paper we do, but they've figured out a way to make it meaningless. So really, America, we have to come to grips with that. We can't go around thinking, oh well, I have my rights. I have my rights. No, you don't. And we have to understand that it's like an alcoholic or a drug addict. You have to admit the position that you're in if you're going to better yourself. We can't go around thinking that this is the America we grew up in, because it's not.
You're absolutely right. And one of the biggest things is, like you said, we don't have our Second Amendment. We literally do not have our first, second, third, fourth, fifth, you name it. We don't have it. It's only a figment of what it was back in the day. A small percentage of what it's been. They've been chipping at it for decades. If you really think about it, they've been doing it from the very beginning. There's always been somebody trying to change it. And you can look back at FDR. Okay, FDR, here recently reading a book that I've been reading. FDR fundamentally was trying to change the mindset of the American people to be entitled. And I must say, although he did not see, or foresee, I should say, what the country has become, he did a damn good job of it.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's the boiling frog thing. Everyone knows the boiling frog theory, where like if you take a frog and you throw it in boiling water, it'll just hop right out. But if you put it, supposedly this is true. I don't even know if this is true, but supposedly I've never tried it. I don't know. I don't condone animal abuse, but supposedly if you put a frog in boiling water and you slowly bring it to a boil, it'll just sit there and let itself get cooked. And that's the mentality that, I mean, there are certain things like Second Amendment. That's a daunting task. And this is something that we're going to be facing this challenge very soon, because we're possibly living in a post-Trump America as well as a post-Constitution one. And the Second Amendment is going to be one of these big, big fights, because how do you take, like, you look at all the guns that we have in this country. I'm sure you know the number. I don't know what the number is. The amount of guns that we have in this country. I mean, how do you take that away from people? Even if you were the others, thinking from the other side's perspective, what they want to do is, instead of just coming to our house door to door and beating our doors in and stuff, like, if they try that, they're gonna lose that, and it's just this huge daunting task. The way that they're gonna do it is they're just gonna make it illegal to defend yourself. It's like, oh, you defended yourself, like Kyle Rittenhouse said. Well, now you're going to prison for 500 years or some bullshit, and then they're just gonna deter people.
Sentence.
Yeah, and then eventually it's just gonna come to the point that. The thing that's going to be really scary about this is that as these sorts of things start happening, as our rights go away, and as the left becomes increasingly radical, because the whole political spectrum has gone further to the left, and that includes the Republican. Everyone, you've got the thing that one of the downsides to the Trump presidency is that it accelerated the left and it decelerated the right. And so now you have these radicals who are on the other side. And as America becomes more and more radical, and as speech like the kind that we're having right now becomes illegal, and hate speech laws, just wait for that. Wait for a hate speech laws to become a thing. And when all this starts to happen, you're going to have people are going to become extreme. They're going to become extremists. I mean, you just be like a regular normal person, and then all of a sudden you're a criminal just because of the hat that you have. Or because the gun that you have in your closet, and then once you're an extremist, you start thinking like an extremist. And then if you have some fucking person loses his mind and takes matters into his own hands, and all of a sudden, that's every time that happens, that's going to be another win for the other side. They're going to say, "See, look at these terrorists. These people are terrorists. Trump supporters are literal domestic terrorists, and we have to treat them like terrorists." And it's just there's going to be very dark times ahead. And
it's already dark, and I think that you can look back at our childhood that it already began getting dark. I remember when I was in school, you still had the paddle in the principal's office. We were always doing the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and we even had prayer in school. All these
Wow.
factors that, yeah, this was, well, I almost disclosed the school on here, but I don't want to do that.
What's
This
your social
was,
security number?
oh, yeah, but this was up in Tennessee, okay? And this
Yes.
is when I was in school. And the time that changed, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I noticed it go downhill immediately, was 9/11 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it completely changed. My school went from the school that, of course, as a child, I wasn't like keen on, oh, I want to go to school and do this, that, and other. No. But I can appreciate what it was pre 9/11.
Yeah.
And then after 9/11, hell, I don't remember any more prayers. I don't remember the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. You name it, it wasn't there. Parents were scared to discipline their children. You see it in the youth that are in the streets today because they didn't have no discipline. That entitlement mentality has taken completely over. Absolutely, completely over. And the thing is that you were pointing out about the Republicans, you are absolutely right. They have been sitting on their hands. They haven't done a damn thing when they were being asked to step up to the plate. And the people that voted them in are also scared to make a move because, just like you said earlier, they can change your life and take it upside down. And that's sad. If we're in America, we should not be living that way. Not at all.
Things are happening so fast now. I mean, if you just think, because one thing that I think we on this side of things, conservatives, have to really, really come to grips with, and this is an uncomfortable conversation to have. I had this conversation with my dad and several others, but the last 5 years, we have to sit here because we are now, I mean, I believe we're going to live in a post-Trump America come January. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I think. And a lot of people are starting to think like, yeah, nobody's got Trump's back. The election's obviously being stolen from him. I mean, that's obvious. We don't even need to go into that. Everybody knows that's, whatever. But the thing that people need to understand is like, okay, what can we learn from this last 5 years? These last 5 years of Trump. Look at what's happened over the last 5 years. Like I said, the political spectrum has gone from the left. We need to learn from the mistakes that the Republicans and conservatives have made. My dad was just saying right now. I was just visiting with him earlier, and he was talking about how is this election's going to go to Supreme Court, and then he's like, well, what goes that going to do? I mean, you really think Amy Coney Barrett or whatever, you think she's going to have his back? And then I'm thinking like, well, he only picked her because she was a woman. And why was that a thing? You remember when that was a thing? Like Trump was like, oh, well, whoever the pick is, it's definitely going to be a woman because that'll make the left happy. And it's like, nothing wrong with a woman, but it's like, is that criteria now? And you started having conservatives like, oh, the first woman Supreme Court who's a mother of black children. It's like, why is that criteria? Like, what does that matter? And you see that all the time now. You see from conservatives, they'll sit there and talk about how Donald Trump was the first president to be pro-LGBT, and Joe Biden, the racist old white man, he opposed gay marriage in 1973, and he did the crime bill and this and that. And I'm just like, I remember just like a couple of weeks ago, Mark Levin was on one of these Fox shows, and he was talking about the looting that was going on in Philadelphia, and he was just like, I'll tell you who's doing it. It's these white liberals. And that's right, I said it. And I'm just thinking like, what are these people doing? Like, why are we the conservatives used to be the people who were like, identity politics is not for us. That's not what we're into. That's the left's thing. The whole, she's a woman, the first African American, this, the first blah blah blah, that all that does is divide us. We're all Americans. That's the philosophy that conservatives used to have, and they've been abandoning that. I mean, I've actually seen on Fox News recently, it was, I don't know, some black conservative, and he was being asked by he was some host, some Fox host was just like, "What do you think about all these white liberals who want to take guns away from African Americans?" And the guy's like, "Oh no, we love we African Americans. We need gun rights, and we have to protect ourselves in our community. It's these white liberals." I'm just like, "What the fuck are y'all doing now?" I mean, is it just like at some point somebody, whenever Trump became president, I think it really scared the establishment because he rode to the White House on this nationalist vision that we are a nation. That's what a nation means. A nation means a people. We are an American people. And somewhere, someone in some dark smoke-filled room was thinking, okay, how are we going to get control of this? Let's get conservatives to, I know, we're going to out liberal the liberals. You have all these years where you just heard constantly about lowest African American unemployment, this and Donald Trump at his one of the State of the Unions, he said, "I'm calling for immigration being the highest number ever. There are more women in Congress than ever before." And I remember thinking he's gonna fucking lose if he keeps this shit up. If the Republicans and the conservatives keep going along with this kind of shit, once you abandon your principles or turn your back on your principles, you lose. And even if you lose by cheating, the other side cheats. We're being cheated out of this election. I believe Trump won the election, but you lose down. Because but who's going to stop them? That's the thing. You still fucking lose. And this is the analogy that I was using with you recently. Is that it's like if you were to have a fist fight, there's a sort of etiquette that that it's not really much of a thing anymore. But, when we were in school, we remember it. And especially older generations that, when it comes to a fist fight in a school or whatever, you fight fair. You don't hit below the belt. You don't throw in any cheap shots or anything like that. And the reason is because what a fight is supposed to prove is who's the better warrior. And if you kick someone in the balls when they're not looking, that doesn't prove that you're the better warrior. It doesn't prove shit. Your opponent will be down, but it doesn't actually prove anything. So you've got one side that's trying to fight fair, and you've got another side that's just willing to do anything. And if you don't meet them where they are, like what you're supposed to do, if someone starts fighting dirty, it's like, okay, you're gonna fight dirty. Well, say hello to my gun. If that's the fight, that's the game you want to play. That's how you're supposed to meet them. But conservatives they're just wanting to lose with principles. They want to still to this day they're still going on about how, oh look, we're not out, here we are, we're losing, and we're just going to get them next time. It's like, dude, there won't be a next time. If they pack the court and go on.
I think this is I marked this in the book because I figured you were going to talk like you are right now, and I figured I'd read this part right here, and then we can discuss it a little bit. But who holds the power? Okay? Who holds the power? As I've suggested before, it makes no sense to reply, the people. In every society, the people live in a fog. They are not directly involved in They are absorbed in a hubbub of everyday life. They are only dimly aware of the larger world around them. And if you told them that they were in fact running society, they would have no idea what you were talking about. They no more run society than they run the National Football League. Sure, they may vote every 2 to 4 years, but even that may not happen if it rains on election day. What this means is that the will of the people is not something given, rather it is made. In Schumpeter's, I don't even know how to say his name, the will of the people is the product and not the motive of the political process. Progressives know this, and as we will see, they devote tremendous resources and energy to forging a climate public opinion favorable to their projects.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's most people, they get their news very passively. Most people, they just sort of, even nowadays everything is super hyper politicized. And even now people still they don't spend time like like you and I are like obsessed. We're constantly, I check revolver.news every single Yeah, we're like that meme of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny, where he's got the cigarette and he's got like the board on the wall.
board, and he's like,
yeah, he's like trying to. It's like us trying to explain how shit actually works in this country. But I mean, it's true. Most people aren't like that. It's understandable. It's fucking understandable. Like when I was just being critical of conservatives. Like, listen, I love conservatives. I love conservative America. These are our people. I have nothing but love for these people, even the ones who go along with it, because I see people going along with it, and I don't have any. It's like you shouldn't have to solve a political fucking Rubik's cube to know what's going on in your country. Nobody should. That's not something that should be expected of us. We shouldn't have to sit there and dig and dig and dig. And there's all different sorts of news outlets coming from all different angles. And then people are politicized even when you're not looking at politics now. I mean, you can't play a video game without being subjected to fucking CGI gay porn nowadays. Literally. Fucking. I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, I'm referring to The Last of Us 2, but I mean, you play a video game now, and there's all these social justice messages. It's in every TV show. It's especially in the commercials. The commercials are, I mean, every movie, music, no matter where you go to look, there's nowhere to hide. Everything is hyper politicized, and people want to get away from that. And it's understandable that somebody gets misled. Like everybody, all of us, everybody, even us. Like I sit there and I try to think back on where I was a year ago or 2 years ago, and all the things that I thought that I now no longer agree with. And I think in a few more years, I'm going to look back at me now, and life is a learning process. And right now we're just in this. The whole country is just confused. Everybody is scratching their heads. The same people who are saying Russia hack the election because of what was it like
are
50
laughing at us for
those same people election. Over there just like exactly the same people, and somehow there's no cognitive dissonance in their minds for having those two thoughts in their minds, and the same people who said this are now saying the exact opposite. And what it really comes down to is there's just a huge struggle for the soul of America right now, and it's not people don't have principles about it. It's not about winning fairly or this or that. People will do whatever it takes to get power, and that's what's happening right now. Right now, as we speak, the plutocratic class that owns everything, the government, and then huge percentage of the population are literally struggling to change what America is. That they believe that America was founded as an evil country, and that because the founding fathers were slave owning white nationalists, that means that the entire country has to be thrown out. And people really believe this. They go to school and they're taught this in school, that this country was founded on white supremacy. And that means that somehow to this day, that's still somehow ingrained in like every facet of everything. It's just literally invisible, but everywhere somehow. And people really believe it. And they think, okay, well, we just have to, we just need to completely overturn everything, replace the American flag with a gay flag, rename America George Floyd land. And, I mean, that's literally where we are. And people have to understand this is more than politics. This is a war. This is a war that's happening right now. Everyone talks about civil war in America. It's happening as we speak. It's been
happening. It's been happening. The thing is that not a shot needs to be fired from a gun.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. When the word war is implemented in a statement, the first thing they think of is physical violence. The thing is that we've been at war for a long time, whether it be economically, whether it be among ourselves. Like right now, I mean, this civil unrest, it's not violence yet.
There is violence.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what I mean. Not at a wide scale, like a war, like a civil war. There's always going to be violence in everything that you look at. But, I mean, as a prime example, this is a war. Whether people want to admit it or not, there is no question as to when civil war will happen. It's already happening.
And, I mean, that's very evident when you look at all the cities that have been burned down over this past summer. I mean, I actually predicted privately. I predicted privately to my wife, I said, there's going to be race riots this year. Just wait. As soon as Ahmaud Arbery happened, as soon as that happened, I said, I bet you anything. It's an election year. There's going to be race riots. And what's really interesting is that this happened before Trump. There were race riots when the whole Black Lives Matter first started, and if you compare those then to now, how much it's progressed is just it's baffling, and it's I'm sorry to say it's happened under Trump. It helped his poll numbers because people associate that sort of violence and criminality with the left. So they say, that's why so many Hispanics have they've polled this, that why so many Hispanics are now voting Republican. A big part of why that is according to polling, is because they feel the same way about all the rioting and the looting and Black Lives Matter that most white Republicans do. So it's like
I disagree on that one. I disagree on that one right there. I believe that he got that larger number of Latino vote for the mere fact that the Cubans and Puerto Ricans down in Florida, because I'm sure, I guarantee it, that's where the majority of those Latino votes came, is that they down there are looking at the Democratic Party and they're realizing that these empty promises of this utopia of free healthcare and free education are the same promises that bastard Fidel Castro gave them a long time ago.
Yeah, there's that. I think that's partially true too. And I don't like to do the whole. I mean, it's a reality. The thing is, like, demographics and different races stuff, it's a biological reality, and it's something worth looking at. I dislike the sort of thing in some sense, like I was saying earlier, the way that Republicans will say, "Oh, the first woman at this, that means good." I don't like to. It's not criteria. It's like a lot of times when they talk about how businesses of color are the ones being destroyed, and as if that somehow makes it more important than if it was like a business owned by a white person or something. So when we talk about Democrats, we're just talking about objectively. Like when you're saying, okay, Cubans, people from Cuba, they're like you are a Cuban, your family. Somewhere
but
down the line.
When the race war begins, they ain't gonna be worried if I'm Cuban. I look white to them.
Yeah,
so I'm just equal game.
Yeah. Well, most Cubans are white, but the thing is, in a race war, your enemy tells you what side you're on. That's the thing. That's why you remember the video of the white liberals? They're like up there having some little party, and there's these people marching, and all of a sudden their windows started getting smashed, and they're like, "We're on your side." You remember that shit? It's just like, dude, in a race war, your enemy will tell you what side you're on. It does not matter. You're not gonna sit there and say, "I was one of the good ones." It's not gonna fucking matter. And it's sad to see that this is happening. But I mean, what I was wanting to get at is that in the last time when you had the Black Lives Matter, when it first started, there was all this sort of debate over whether or not Mike Brown was justified or not. And you look at it now, and there will be like this recent one in Philadelphia. There was just, I mean, literally, this guy was coming at a cop with a knife. It's on video, coming at a cop with a knife, and he was shot. And I'm just like, do these people? And they're writing and bitching about it. I'm like, do these people? Do they think any black man has ever been justifiably shot by police ever? Like that would be an interesting question. If I could ask a Black Lives Matter advocate, if I was the media, I would honestly ask that. And honestly, that'd be my first question. I'd be like, so has any black man ever been justifiably shot by the police in the history of the world ever? Because their answer is, because at this point, it's not about that. The last time they would try to argue, they would try to make the case, even though it's bullshit. They try to make the case, oh, Mike Brown, he has his hands up and he said, don't shoot, and this kind of thing. Now it's not even about that. It's just like a criminal was killed by the cops. Yeah, therefore we're going to get our revenge. And they're actually out there saying, there was like a bunch of Antifa or something. They're saying, who do we represent? Black criminals. Literally saying that. A non-edited video, an actual video of them saying black criminals. Criminals. They're actually literally a party of crime at this point.
I was having this argument.
Taken over.
I was having this argument the other day at work. Okay, at work, they've been, all right, they know how I feel about this whole thing, and they've been putting on my damn board when I walk back into the shop, Biden 2020, or, this, that, and other, just to piss me off.
That's not supposed to happen in a workforce.
It's happening all the time. Yeah. But listen, this one guy I was arguing with, and the reason that we argued, and I like the guy, okay? I respect him, don't get me wrong, all right? Everybody has a right to an opinion. But he was talking about that we, in America, have no reason to own guns. Okay, so that's where that started. Okay, hold on now.
I love when
somebody. You can imagine.
Second, as soon as somebody starts that conversation, I'm immediately like, "Oh, you're about to get owned so good!" I get excited because I just know immediately I'm gonna rip this person to shreds. Go on.
and I did. I got. But look, later into the conversation, that shooting came up. All right, and
Yeah.
his claim was is that police officers, I guess he's just as arrogant. Uh, police officers are out there going after the blacks.
Yeah.
So he said his argument to me was, well, why didn't the cop shoot him in the leg?
There's an artery
Oh
that bleed out.
my goodness.
You'll bleed to death. There's a fucking artery in your leg that you can bleed to
Not
death.
even that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cops are human. Okay. You having an adrenaline
Oh,
rush
yeah,
when a man is running at you with a freaking knife.
No, you got to understand, these people, they get their view from television, and they think that you can just all of a sudden turn into Clint Eastwood from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and just shoot the guy's like trigger finger off or something. So they think shooting's like that. They don't understand. First of all, they don't understand that when you're having this adrenaline thing, like, oh shit, someone's coming at me with a knife. He might kill me. You literally with a knife. You might die.
When my dispute, he said that they hired the wrong police officer.
Dude.
That was his argument.
So dumb.
I was at this point, everything I've said went in one ear and out the other. I walked out of the shop. I was like, I'm done.
The funny thing is, people get their view, just like I was saying, people get their view on guns from television. Like, you see like in a movie, somebody gets shot and they like go back like as if they were like punched or something. It's like, shit doesn't fucking, the bullet just goes right fucking through you. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? See somebody get shot and they go flying away and all this. Or you think that people can just shoot like everybody's like some kind of, even like fucking like trained sharpshooters are not that fucking to like it is in the movies where you have some action hero who just, I'm going to shoot him in the leg, but not in the femoral artery or whatever it's called, so that he lives and all that kind of thing. But now people, the thing is, like I was saying earlier, people are fed this thing like that. They're told cops go after black criminals. They just, or black people. Cops are just hunting down black people. This is a thing that I was really mad about in the last Trump debate when he was at, when they sat there and they told him, they said, now black and brown parents are having to have a talk with their children to explain to them that the evil racist cops might kill them for no reason other than the color of their skin. And it's like, if I was Trump in that moment, I would have said, okay, how many black unarmed blacks were killed a year? How many unarmed black were killed last year?
9, was it not?
Yeah. Nine people. And if you look at each of those cases, most of it was like really justified. And then, he did say it once. He said, he was asked about it and he said, well, what about white people? More white people are shot by the cops than black people. I mean, if people look at it, it's like, okay, there were 9 unarmed blacks shot by the police in the year of 2019. That is not a reason to, like, if you're worried about that, you'd have to be one of these people who are worried about getting struck by lightning every time you step out of your house or something. I mean, you have to be fucking crazy to be in it. I mean, it was child abuse to sit there and tell your child
like winning the lottery,
Twice.
I mean, obviously
twice and then get struck by lightning. Like,
that's the likelihood.
And then the thing is, like, you look at everything that's happened this year, every single case, every single one of them, dude, this year has beginning with Ahmaud Arbery. People are still, like, in Georgia, I don't know, the prosecuting attorney, who the fuck ever, who originally let those guys off. This happened here in Georgia. It was this black dude was he was stealing from a construction site, and he had done this repeatedly, and some guys came out and confronted him, and the guy with guns, and the dude grabbed the guy's gun and then shot him. And so he was let off because it's like, okay, if somebody's grabbing your gun, he might shoot you back. And the confrontation was on the other guy's end, and that whoever that was got voted out. And I saw some people celebrating, oh, this racist evil woman, thank God she's gone, good riddance, and all this kind of thing. And it's like, that was the beginning of it this year. It began with him, and right from the beginning, it was like, there's this video, they were saying this guy was just out for a jog, and these 2 hillbillies just shot him for no reason at all. And then you look at the video, it's like, are those Timberlands? Like, is this guy jogging in Timberlands? And then you find out he's 6 miles away from his house. So it's like, assuming that's his turnaround point. So it's like, so this guy jogs 12 miles a fucking day in boots. And what's he got in his hand? He's got like a hammer in his hand. I'm like, okay, this is bullshit. This guy, there's more to the story. Like, right off the bat, you're like, when you're being fed bullshit. And then it comes to find out, oh, here's footage of this guy snooping around construction sites. And they were trying to say, well, maybe he was looking for water. It's like, get me, like, I want to beat my fucking head against the wall. Like, you have to be anyone who thinks that should be institutionalized. And then when you have the George Floyd thing, it's like anybody who watches the full video, because the full video is available now. Anybody who watches that full video and thinks that George Floyd was hunted down for being black should be fucking institutionalized. And every single one of these people, even Breonna Taylor, was a fucking drug dealer. Every single one of these fucking people, that whole case, that was the big deal where she was supposed to be the real sympathetic character. It's like the fucking cops were shot at. What the fuck were they supposed to do? Just let themselves get shot? And every single case this year has been there shouldn't be a dispute about it because everything's on fucking camera nowadays, but it doesn't matter anymore. That's what we have to come to grips with. It doesn't matter anymore. It does not matter if this guy was a criminal. It doesn't matter if the cop killing this criminal was justified. It doesn't matter at this point. There is a pro-crime party that is taking over the United States of America right now.
Absolutely. And although everybody is saying that Trump is at fault for the division in this country, I say that is false because the people that are actually running all of this, of course, first one is Silicon Valley. Okay. Yeah. And then you have the medias, including Fox News. I don't know how many times people have told me, well, I don't get my information from Fox News as an argument statement towards me. I only listen to Tucker Carlson and Hannity from time to time. But anyways, they are the ones in control because they are feeding the hogwash bullshit down their throats, and these people are buying into it. These people are so indoctrinated that they don't think for themselves. They haven't been thinking for themselves for decades, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Through the first 4 years here of Trump's presidency, I have never seen such unprecedented negative coverage of the president. Every single thing was negative, nearly. It was like 91 or 92% from my understanding. And that 91 and 92% people bought into it. I'll sit there and I argue with people and they're like, oh, he's racist and you must be racist because you're voting for him and this, that, and other. Well, then I asked them to give me some proof that he's racist. I said, give me something. Give me something instead of just throwing this out there and calling me a racist along with him. I said, you give me something, and I'll see if I can dispute it. You know what? Literally 80% of the time, the first thing they say is, he called the white supremacists very fine people. That right there tells you how stupid society can be.
If anybody doesn't know, that the full context was that he's referring to Charlottesville, and it's not one of these things where he said something and then later went back and says, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. No, if you watch the full context, he made it clear from the beginning. He said there were, he blamed both sides for the violence in Charlottesville, and then he said that, and it's true because some of the people on the right side, it was called Unite the Right. That was the name of that rally. There's all different kinds of people there. There's all right people there, but then there were some people who were there just to defend the statue of Robert E. Lee, and for no other reason, because that's a thing that most people, according to polling, agree that Confederate statues should be left alone, and most people are not all wrapped up in that kind of thing. But he said he made it clear that those are the people he was referring to. And he said the very fine people, he was talking about the people who were just there to defend Robert E. Lee. And then he went on to say that he's doubled down on his defense of the Robert E. Lee statue. He said, if we take down Robert E. Lee, what's going to be next? Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. He's been 100% vindicated on that because we've seen that, especially in this past year. A statue of a white man is coming down.
Yeah, and it's fair game.
I have a theory about, you're talking about how the media is like mostly like 91% anti-Trump or whatever. I actually have a theory about this. I think the media deliberately goes after him for a lot of stupid shit. Like the media's extremely unfair with him. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. But I think a lot of times they deliberately go after him for stupid shit because then that makes you want to defend him, right? Like whenever they say Donald Trump is an asset of Putin or something fucking retarded like that, it makes you want to defend him. And then the next thing you know, everybody's talking about Trump's a Russian this and no, he's not. And then who's talking about, the fact that suicides and drug overdoses and alcohol deaths are at an all-time high, obesity is at an all-time high, our birth rates in the fucking shitter. Nobody wants to have fucking kids anymore. Our society's deracinated, just completely falling apart. And every day our country looks more like the Tower of fucking Babel. Nobody's talking about the important things of what is happening to our country every day. These powerful elites, these rich Silicon Valley assholes are becoming more and more powerful, and we, nobody's talking about that. Instead, we're talking about Trump said a mean thing. How does that make you feel? It's like, fuck you.
Like the bleach injection.
Well, yeah, well, that was just
that one gives me a headache.
Yeah, there was
because they actually take that out of context to the point that he's actually telling people to inject themselves with it.
And that's the thing.
People buy into it. You sit there and argue with it, and they'll be like, well, he said this and he said that. And I'm like, you really have to question your level IQ if you do not understand sarcasm or a joke when you hear it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's a stupid thing to fucking argue about. It's stupid. It's like, okay, you made a joke, and then people believe it, and then all of a sudden you have to devote time to fucking disputing this absolutely retarded thing. It's like the other thing. I remember there's this local page that's liberal as fuck. This is a conservative area, but there's this very liberal page on Facebook that just about everybody in the county follows. And it's I remember some years ago they posted the thing when Trump said, when he referred to Haiti as a shithole country, which, I mean, objectively, shithole, what that means is it's a country where they don't have toilets, so they shit in holes. So, I mean, if Haiti's not a shithole, where the fuck is? But anyways, they're going on about that. And basically, they were just like, how do you feel about the president's things? I remember I commented, I said, Trumpy says mean words. How does that make you feel? And I'm like, people who think with their fucking emotions like that should not be allowed a say in political outcome. And I'll stand by that.
Agreed. Agreed. I stand with that.
Feelings. They think with their fucking feelings. They don't sit there and just think about it objectively. I mean, fucking truth hurts sometimes,
I was making that argument. I was making that argument the other day. It's like the majority of these people that voted for Biden, okay, they are literally doing it on misinformation and based on their feelings instead of using logic and pro-information that shows exactly where the country has been heading in the past 4 years, which has been a complete turnaround from the Obama era in a positive direction. But no, forget that, he did this or he did that. No, that's not important. What's important is that he says mean things. So we got to vote him out.
And then they say then they start saying this is why a country is so divided, is because of these insensitive things it says. The country, like you were saying earlier, the country was divided before Trump. You could say, like, they do not want to look at the other person's perspective. Nobody ever wants to look at the other side's perspective. We have no choice but to hear the other side's perspective because you can't turn on the television without hearing it. But the thing is, it's like on one end, they like to think that, if you don't like if you're not okay with just unlimited people flooding into the country from everywhere over the world and not having to assimilate, not having to do anything to become American, if you're not okay with that, then you're hateful and you're dividing this country. It's like, dude, the fucking presence of millions of people in this country who you can't communicate with, that causes division. I mean, if you have neighbors, like, I defy somebody to explain to me how having neighbors who you cannot communicate with somehow makes your community stronger. Like, the thing you hear all the time, diversity is our greatest strength. It's like, okay, how? I've never heard a good answer to that. And it's like,
that's a good point. That's a damn good point.
I work with people, and I know people in my private life and neighbors and whatnot who don't speak English, and who I like, who are nice people, and I like them and they like me and whatnot, and we, whatever. But the thing is, you can't really be friends with somebody you can't communicate with. If you can't communicate with somebody, what's the best you can do? Oh, I'm married. See the ring? I have 3 kids. It's like that. That's the extent to a conversation you can have. You can never have a meaningful conversation with somebody. And that's good for the other side, because the more divided the country is, the more people are just atomized. Instead of being a people, like the United States is a nation, or it should be a nation. A nation means a people. It's an extended family of people. And we have to start thinking about it like that. We have to start thinking of the United States as a big, broad family, where it's like when people say, oh, these children at the border, look at these crying children. Why do you love your children but not them? It's just like, because they're my children. Like, you love your children. I expect you to love your children more than you love my children. I love my children because they're mine. And I prioritize my family over everybody else because it's my family. Just extend that to the country. The country is an extended family of people. And so we put ourselves first in the same sense that you put your children first, in the same sense that you put your wife or your own, even if you have a family member who you don't get along all that well with, like you have a brother and you don't get along well, but he breaks his leg and he's loses his job and he's fell on hard times, you're still going to be there for him because it's your fucking brother. And that's the way that that's the way that a nation should operate. That's the essence of nationalism. Like, I was making when I was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I guess I'll make a Twitter page for the Post Constitution podcast tonight. But when I was on Twitter, I remember I had this big debate with somebody where they were trying to make the argument that immigrants are just better than Americans. And they're just saying, oh, well, they start more businesses than Americans and they do this and that. And I'm just like, okay, let's just say for the sake of the argument that you're right. Let's just for the sake of argument, let's say that you're right. If I came up to you, somebody, say you have 2 children or 3 children, whatever, you have children, and I come up to you and say, hey, nice kids, but these kids over here are actually better. They're smarter. They'd make better grades. They're more talented. I bet your kid can't play the grand piano. This one can. These kids have much more promising futures. They're better looking and blah, blah, blah. Why wouldn't you trade your kids for these kids? It's like, dude, because these are my kids. I don't care that they're not the smartest kids or that they're shitheads sometimes. They're my fucking kids. The American people. These are our fucking people. And that's the way that we need to look at it.
That's exactly the way. That's what it means to be a nationalist. Anyone who legally comes into the country, okay, and assimilates to this country, okay, because that's what my grandparents did. Okay, they became a part of this nation. My grandmother raised me to be patriotic. She said that we need to appreciate what we have here. Okay, that's what these others that are coming into the country need to realize. That's why everybody from around the world tries to run here. The opportunities are there. Okay, and people, and I hate to say it, but the majority of just about every single person that lives in the United States has taken it for granted.
Yeah. It's like a spoiled child.
Even the right. I mean, even the right, because they feel like they have wings over them, being the Constitution, wings over them, protecting them or whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, no one is no longer protected. And here, before we get off, because I'll have to get off here in a minute, I wanted to go over a few facts. Okay, I know you said earlier when we started this that you didn't even want to go over the election thing.
I mean,
but I have a few details. I have a few details that I'd like to point out. Okay, and I started with Georgia because being our state or whatnot and being a part of this whole problem, I figured I'd look into a little bit. So this is the thing. Fulton County allowed poll workers to take ballots home to count. Okay?
Yeah.
Georgia Secretary of State has an investigation of over 100 cases. This was given on Saturday. I'm sure it's got to be more now. Mm-hmm. Georgia now has over 1,000 alleged double voting. Okay? And this applies the same to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and so on and so on. All right? Now, I was listening to Rudy Giuliani earlier, and Rudy Giuliani kind of explained how the voting has to be done. When you're counting ballots, whether it be mail-in ballots or not, okay, by law, you have a Democrat and you have a Republican together with one of the election or voting employees. You know what I'm saying? This Democrat and Republican, let's say, for example, pick up the mail. This is the ballot coming in, okay? They must both observe the mail-in ballot. They must both agree what the mail-in ballot says. And when they agree that they both see the same thing, that let's say it's a Democratic ticket, the Republican notice, oh, it's Biden, okay, in this Senate, whatever. It's this person that voted. They're from this address. This is their signature. This is a legitimate voter. Okay? Then that vote goes into account. Now, the biggest problem that we're having in this election, and I'm sure you've seen, is that the GOPs are being kicked out of the counting rooms. The
Yeah, not being
Democrats
allowed to
are in
watch.
there 3-1. 3-1. And they're doing what is called harvesting. Harvesting is where they take a whole bunch of them ballots and they're just tossing it up on the table. Okay, like let's say you got a bag of mail, you just dump it out right there on the table. This is called harvesting. All the ballots are just kind of thrown together, and you kind of pick and choose. Oh, this is a Republican ballot, fuck, throw it away. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have a Republican there to be like, I just saw that. You can't be doing that. Oh, well, here on the first night, Trump is winning by a landslide. I'm sure you were probably paying attention to it, but
I was listening to a
he
live
was
stream
killing
the
the
whole day.
numbers. Okay, he was killing the numbers, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden the night's coming to an end. These states have to go on hold. Biggest one, Michigan. Michigan stopped counting. What was it? 3 o'clock in the morning, I believe, or 3:30 in the morning. And then they said that they were going to start counting again at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, between 3:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning, 138,000 votes, all for Biden, miraculously, just out of thin air, show up under Biden. Now,
the ballot fairy came and visited
the
them.
that's exactly right. The ballot fairy came in and did exactly that. Now, the thing is that there are more votes for Biden and Trump as presidents than they have for senates. What does that tell you? For every ballot,
that's a
there's
huge
senates on it.
irregularity.
That is a
that's a
massive
huge
irregularity.
irregularity.
And then you have the one county that 6,000 freaking votes flip-flopped over to Biden, okay, from apparent error or glitch in the system. Now, most of Michigan, the other counties, are using the very same system. The very same system. And you're going to tell me that, oh, that was just this county. You know, we don't have to do recount. We don't have to worry about these other counties that are using the exact same damn system that was counting the votes in the one county. Okay? This is another thing. This one's kind of funny, okay? Over 1,600 votes. Okay? Over 1,600 votes in Pennsylvania. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Is well over 100 years old.
Oh my God.
25
I
of
haven't
them.
heard that one yet.
25 of them, no shit, was born in 1900.
See, I haven't even heard.
Do you know
that
what
one
the
yet.
oldest person is in the United States?
110 or something like that.
No, I took notes on this, okay? The oldest person, I had to research this. The oldest person alive in the United States, her name is Hester Ford. Okay, she's an African American woman. Her date of birth is August 15, 1905. She lives in North Carolina.
Oh wow.
North Carolina. She doesn't live in Pennsylvania. She lives in North freaking Carolina.
I mean, I haven't heard this one yet. I've been so drowned in just like, oh look here, they're boarding up the windows so you can't see what's going on, and here the poll watchers are having to use binoculars because they're like 30 feet away from the fucking thing, and it's just like they're doing it in the open because they know the media will cover for them. They know the media is not going to hold them accountable, so they can just do this shit in the open now. They don't have to hide what they're doing because the media will hide it for them. The media will just say, oh, those people who think this is illegitimate or just blah, 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 blah. And the thing is now nobody trusts elections anymore. Nobody's ever going to trust elections anymore because it's just so on your face. This is like an Iraqi style election, the way the things are going on right now. It's not even like a banana republic, because a banana republic is just like everything is dysfunctional. This is not, as I said before, this is not electile dysfunction. This is what they intend. This is how they intend to do it. And just as this would be a good way to end it. This is a post-Constitution America. We don't have free and fair elections like we used to. We have to come to grips with that. And the thing is, we don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. I know you don't have the answers. All we're doing is we're just observing and we're talking about what's going on in the world. People are going to have to figure out what the answers are. And No, I'm not saying we can't run away out of this. We got to take to the streets with guns. I'm never going to fucking say that. That's not what we're advocating or anything like that. We're just telling you this is the world that we live in. It's like I said, it's like, to use the alcoholic analogy again. If you're trying to help somebody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict, the first thing you have to do is be like, look at what you're doing to yourself. Look at the state that you're in. You have to make it clear this is where you are at now, okay? That's the first step, and then people will get their heads together. The American people will get their heads together. Maybe we'll form a new party. Maybe something will happen. But the first thing that we've got to get through our heads is that we are living in a post-Constitution America, and that's what our job is on this show. That's the message that we'd like to convey to people, is that we have to start thinking like dissidents, because we're no longer, I have my right to say whatever I want. You can't stop me. It's like, yes, they can, so we have to start thinking like dissidents and acting like dissidents. And as the world becomes more radical and more extreme, we have to keep our heads about ourselves. And the best thing, the advice I give to people is stick close to your family. Find other people, just like what you and I are doing right now. We're talking, we're communicating. People listening to this should do this with their family, with people they love, with people they know. If you have somebody who's on the fence, or if you have a conservative who's out there saying, well, I think the Democrats are the real racists because they were the party of the Ku Klux Klan 100 years ago. Like, dude, shut up. Like, here, that's a stupid argument, and here's why. You know what I mean? We gotta fucking get our heads together, and we gotta get through to people and just reveal the truth.
And you're right.
That's what we're all about here.
And before we close out here, because I'm going to close out here in a minute,
Yes.
I just want people to realize, who watch this and watch that last segment, that the facts that we're bringing out on what's being discovered in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and otherwise, we are not in any way trying to discourage people from going to the polls and voting. I highly, 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 regardless, recommend you get out and you vote, especially if Trump does not actually win. In 2022, we must keep the Republican as the majority in Senate and House. And then again, we shall try again in 2024. Okay.
And when you look at how hard they had to work to overthrow this election, that really tells you something. It says that voting does matter and it does count for something. If they are going to work this hard to overthrow an election, they have to be doing that for something.
Yeah,
because this is such a damaging thing. What they've done is so socially damaging for future generations. And if they're willing to do that, which I guess they probably just enjoy that part, but if they're willing to do that, that means they must have a really good reason to want to do it. But anyways, yes, we'll do this again.
Next Sunday.
It'll be a Sunday show.
We'll cover all the latest news if we can and discuss what's going on across the country as we go to shit.
As we go to shit in real time. Dude, this has been great. This has awesome. Been really, really good. So we'll do it again next time, and I'll see you then. And thank you to everybody for listening.
Definitely.
All right, I'll see you next time, man.